Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I had to begin my day focused on the miracles of Allah. And Allah is the Arabic translation of God. And I received a text message from my mother who said, focus on the attributes. We had a conversation the other day, and it always leads to spirituality. My mother's very, 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 very spiritual. And in the conversation, she raised the point. She said Allah, or the Creator, doesn't judge us by our gender and doesn't judge us by religion. She said, once you get to a certain level, there is no religion. And I could almost hear my dad's voice, in opposition to this theory, saying, I don't think that this is not accurate. My father was an imam. But I wanted to share my mother's point of view because I thought it was really interesting nonetheless. See, what I like to do is I like to give a plethora of perspectives. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt with their intellectual astuteness and capabilities to be able to come to their own. That's wisdom. Having a buffet, so to speak, of knowledge and being able to be open enough to listen to things, even if they oppose your perspective. They could offer a very stark contrast to the things that you believe in, but saying, there's room in my mind for me to take that into consideration. So she said at a certain level, because my mother went through from Christianity, she was born Christian. When she married my father, she converted to Islam. She converted back to Christianity, and now she identifies herself as a spiritualist. She said at a certain point, you do away with religion. So that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective, Mom. And I just closed my mouth and opened my ears and let her teach me some wisdom, because she's got a lot of it. She said, God doesn't judge us by our religion. And I promise you, I heard my father's voice say, Kinza, this is not right. This is not correct. But I said, let me take this into consideration. She said, God judges you by your spirit. It's not your religion. It's not your creed. It's not your gender, how you're getting judged. It's by your spirit. It's by your heart. So she said at a certain level, religion is kind of like null and void. It's kind of a precursor to spirituality, so to speak. So that's very interesting, Mom. Very interesting. And so she sent me a text message earlier. She said, don't forget about the attributes of God. Don't forget about the attributes of Allah. And so I was focused earlier on the attributes of Allah. I wrote them down. Al-Badi, the stress reliever. Al-Baqi, the immoral, basically captain of good deeds. Al-Waris, the supreme inheritor. Al-Rashid, the guide to the right path. As-Sabr, the patient. Al-Khahman, the compassionate. Al-Khahim, the most merciful. Al-Malik, the sovereign. Al-Qudus, the most holy. As-Salam, the source of peace. Al-Mukmin, the security grantor. Ahmay, Al-Mukhaymin, the protector. Al-Aziz, the mighty. Al-Jabbar, the compeller. Al-Mutakabin, the majestic. Al-Khaliq, the creator. Al-Bari, the maker. Al-Musawin, the facilitator of focus. Al-Ghaffar, the forgiver. Al-Qahhar, the subduer. Al-Wahhab, the bestower. Many, many names. Al-Alim, the all-knowing. Al-Kabid, the truthful. It's so many names. It's 99 attributes. The forgiver, the forbearing, the magnificent, the grateful, the highest, the preserver, the sustainer, the exalted. It's just so many attributes. And I loved it. These attributes are something that, you should be able to draw on and understand that the Creator is not myopic. One of the favorite parts when I was going through the attributes was, it says, Al-Awwal, the first, Al-Akhir, the last, right? The Alpha and the Omega, right? The first and the last? The first, yes, the first and the last. Al-Muqaddim, the expediter. Al-Muqakkir, the delayer. The expediter and the delayer? Yes. Yes, the expediter and the delayer. I said, wow, that's so heavy. I got emotional. I actually got emotional just thinking about how heavy that was. The expediter and the delayer and the first and the last and the hider, the concealer and the exposer. Woo! Everything, all encompassing. There's even an attribute that says the all encompassing. Oh. Oh. There's an attribute that says basically like the uplifting and then like the humiliating too. I said, whoa, this is really powerful. Really, 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 really powerful. And I thought about this idea of I kept thinking like the weapons of mass destruction. And what do I mean by the weapons of mass destruction? Well, you know, for many of us, the minute that you begin to cultivate your mind can be seen as a weapon. In theory, follow me now, in theory, you may have, you know, the same like CIA, FBI, law enforcement, government informants and things like that, like the idea of them targeting somebody who may have bombs or weapons or have arms or illegal arms or whatever. If your mind is a weapon, they may target you because of that. That's the weapon. So I started thinking weapons of mass destruction, and I started thinking also about this idea of America. And I wanted to be balanced in this discussion of America because I think that, you know, I was listening to Nazir Raw one time, and he said he was really on the other side, and he was talking about America from a patriotic standpoint. He said, look, I'm not a capitalist, I'm an economist. And he said, this is the place where you can come and you can go from nothing and you can grow to something. And the opportunities here, people come from other countries, they provide for their entire families here. Like, let's not just look at America from a villainous point of view, right? Let's be balanced in our discussion of America, right? The whole thing of just like being a go-getter in this country, you know what I'm saying? And like the idea that your mind can actually take you places in this country, right? If you sharpen your intellect and you use your intellect to master or to manifest success in this country. Yeah, there are certain places that are more classist, and I'm not saying that America doesn't have it at all, but there are certain places where basically if you're not born into a royal family or you're not born into wealth, the idea of you being able to escape that circumstance or that situation is very unlikely. It's pretty much like you're set in stone. So we have to be balanced. And I think that one thing that I'll say is you have to also be open-minded enough to listen. But whenever I hear, like, for example, if you're at a job and somebody is giving an evaluation of somebody's work performance and they're only saying negative things, that person's credibility is a little bit out the window because there's nobody who's all good and there's nobody who's all bad, right? There's no nation that's all good and there's no nation that's all bad, right? So a balanced perspective, which is what contributes to credibility when somebody's able to be balanced and say, you know, we're not going to entirely vilify America because there's certain things that America does have, and especially we reside here, that we can say that we benefit from. Certain places, if you don't have if you can't feed your family, you see the videos of the kids' ribs who are touching. Certain places, if you can't feed your family, you are asked out. They don't have social service programs like America does. They don't have the same, situation where people are able to still be able to eat, still be able to feed their families. Like certain places, like you'll starve to death. And so we always want to talk about the bad sides of America, but we don't ever want to talk about the good side of America. And I think that we have to be balanced when we have this conversation. But I started thinking about this idea of weapons of mass destruction. And, I touched on the last post about how, to some degree, the incentive for my reclusiveness is because I'm really, principle-wise, I'm very much put off by certain behavior. I'm really not into gossip. I'm really not into talking about people in like a negative way. It's very off-putting. And to be candid, I have some things that I'm going to need some mercy for. Nobody's perfect. And so I don't necessarily bend over backwards to stain my character with frivolous things like gossip, which is a sin. I would rather not engage in any sinful behavior as much as possible, because I will need mercy for things that I did in my ignorance, in my days of darkness. So I'm not bending over backwards, especially if it does nothing for me, to incur bad karma on myself by making disparaging remarks or comments about another human being. But I started thinking about weapons of mass destruction and how this idea on the other side of America, and this is the reason why America has been seen as somewhat of a villain to a lot of other countries, that they can really just make up anything. We still have not, to this day, found evidence of weapons of mass destruction. We don't know if those weapons of mass destruction really existed. And I was just thinking about how weapons of mass destruction, and I was thinking like maybe I'm a weapon of mass destruction to some degree. Like I've had people come after me for literally no reason, but like were so thirsty to have a reason to come after me. But the truth is they just wanted to come after me. They didn't need a reason, and then they kind of backpedal and look for they desperately look for any reason to like try to attack me. Like they just didn't want to see me win. Period. Like they did not want to see me win. They didn't want to see me have honor. They didn't want to see me rise to my purpose. They didn't want to see me have greatness. And because they really had no reason to to attack me, they just kind of like did it. And then it was kind of like confirmation bias, like desperately looking for reasons why they did it in the first place. But I understand that this is a spiritual war here, and it's also what I represent. It's who I represent. And so it's just that simple. I have to be fair and balanced and say that there's people that want me to win so much that they'll look for any reason. I don't know. I just like what she had on. I don't know. I just like the way she talks. I just like the tone of her voice. Let's let her win. So I'm not going to be unbalanced and say like there's not people that are really rooting for me as well. And shout out to all the people that are really rooting for me. Much love, much love. I pray for you every single day. So, weapons of mass destruction. Now, the way a lot of us see it, knowing that America has had, a very tumultuous relationship with other nations, America did not have a reason to wage war on some of these countries, but needed something. Now, what I've noticed is that when it comes into dictatorship or narcissism, certain things are rooted in that. Certain things are rooted in, like, what would make a nation that's quote-unquote a superpower that has a mint factory and resources beyond words want to pick on a nation that is, like, depleted, economically depleted? Well, it's one of two reasons. Maybe they're economically depleted, but they are rich in resources, and so the resources are necessary. Or it could just be rooted in, like, it's like a bully. It's like this narcissistic kind of like dominant egomaniac kind of personality, like this dictator personality, is willing to do things even if there's not necessarily a monetary gain, just a flex type thing, right? Like, oh, you don't want to bow to us? You don't want to bow to us? Oh, you don't want to recognize us as the superpower? Oh, you want to criticize us? All right, we will make your life a living hell just for that. Just based off of ego. Just pure and utter ego. And I posted earlier to Hudi Mahathir, I said, ego is not a bad thing, but unskillful ego is. I was listening to Minister Farrakhan the other day, and I heard he made a few good points, and I kept on thinking about this need to renounce him. How they made Barack Obama renounce him. And even after that, his maturity and his love for his people and understanding the greater good, he said, even after the brother renounced me, I still told the whole community to go out and vote for him. And me and my wife were up at 5 o'clock in the morning at the polls to vote for him, because when your ego is in check, right? And I listen to the minister, I say, whoa, this man is brilliant. This man's a force to be reckoned with. This is the reason why they continuously try to vilify this man. It's his mind, and it's his power, and the magnetism that he has, and the force that he has, and his commitment to the truth. This is no coward. This man is the opposite. This man, if anybody is cowardly around him, they will stick out like a sore thumb. That's how much he's the opposite of a coward. This is alpha masculinity in its flesh. This is a messenger of God, straight from our Creator, sent to guide us. We should be thanking our lucky stars that we are able to incarnate on the earth to share this planet during the same time that he did. Oh my gosh. This is a man where you say nothing around him and you're just humble to be in his presence. And I say this to say that when it comes to ego, people get confused and think that I'm egotistical. What I say is it's against my deen for me to bow to agents of Shaitan. But when I'm in the presence of agents of the Most High, when I'm in the presence of the people who are committed to the truth and such an impeccable standard of righteousness, that's where you see the reverence come in. And there's nothing in this world that will make me revere those who embody everything that I principle-wise don't stand for. There's nothing in this world that will ever make me be humble to people who embody qualities, principles that are pretty much anti-Christ or anti-Christ consciousness or anti the Creator. I consider that blasphemy. You'll never see that from me. So going back to the minister, he said that it was the greater picture for him. Even though him and Barack Obama had met formally and they had conversations, and the minister had left a tremendous impact on Chicago, and the FOI had left a tremendous impact on Chicago in the sense of their organization and their sense of righteousness and their sense of building up Black men had really done a lot of good to counter the gang violence that was going on in the west side and the south side of Chicago. So it's not like the minister, like, he organizes, and he's a peacemaker. And he's like, I don't really even see, like, he was talking about Trump, he's like, I don't really even see, like if you're about cleaning up the streets and I'm about cleaning up the streets, then that's something that we can agree on, right? But anyways, so he was saying, and he made another point about Trump or whatever. He was saying something about how something to the effect of, and I don't want to misquote the minister, but he's saying something to the effect of like the KKK was in support of Trump, and they wanted Trump to like renounce the KKK, but he said I wouldn't have advised him to renounce the KKK because he might need the KKK's vote. I thought that was an interesting an interesting point about the greater picture. So applying that to Barack Obama, he said, yes, I met with Barack, and if they needed him to renounce me in order for him to win the election, in order for him to, which we know that shouldn't have even been on the table. But he said, I went ahead and he said Barack went ahead and he renounced him. He said he renounced him. And he still told the congregation, and this man is very influential, and this man is influential not just here on American soil, but has extraordinary reverence internationally. He still told everybody, support this man. Why? Because it was good for the community. Because it was good for our children. My son was born literally when we went to go see Barack in Newark, New Jersey, me and my sister. I just had my child, because I remember this because I was still wearing that little backpack, that little baby thing. And we gave him Khalil to hold. My son was a little baby. He was like less than 1. It was the year before Barack got elected. We went to Newark, New Jersey, and he held Khalil. I believe he held Khalil. I gotta check with my sister. It's been a while, but yeah. So subconsciously, all my son knew until he was about 9 years old, 8 years old, was a black president. Do you know the imprint on young black boys and the black community that had on their minds to say, wow, I could be the president one day, right? Do you know the level of self-esteem And a lot of people say a lot of things about Barack and his presidency and how he didn't do anything specifically for black people and all these things. But we have to also, as much as we're critical, we have to be balanced in this discussion that just his presence alone, just what him and Michelle and those 2 babies in the White House, Sasha and Malia, just the optics alone. A strong black male who's brilliant-minded, had to be brilliant-minded, had to be smart as hell. You can't get away with a lot of these things that they get away with, frankly. Had to be very, 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 very intelligent. Couldn't have any scandals or anything like that. He was, the microscope and the scrutiny was held up to him beyond words. Anyways. Just that alone, in the nuclear black family, and seeing a mother and seeing a father and seeing all of those things, just that alone did a lot for the community. Having the foresight as a visionary, the minister said, he can go ahead and renounce me. I know it's some political nonsense, but I know what this is going to do for the community. And my ego, right? I'm willing to put aside, and this is where we get into the conversation of having a skillful ego. I'm willing to put aside, as much as I know that principle-wise, ethically, it is wrong for them to force people to renounce me. I'm willing to put all of that aside for the greater good of mankind, and that is a leader. That is a leader. A dictator who has this unskillful ego is almost willing to put himself or herself in positions of sabotage where they can literally lose everything just at the inkling of disrespect or criticism, or not inflating their ego. So this is the difference when Tahuti Ma'atara talks about skillful ego versus an unskillful ego, and also who has the qualities to lead, right? Who really has the qualities to lead. So weapons of mass destruction. This is what this video is about, weapons of mass destruction. You know, it's never a bad time to do personal inventory and say, am I leading with a mentality that's going to lead to my longevity, my success in the long term? Or am I too short-sighted? Am I too emotional that I will end up screwing myself? And these are just questions to generally ask yourself, you know. When we talk about leadership, I remember a lot of things changed. This was a very monumental point in my life because my father was the imam. And at the mosques that we attended, I attended the Atlanta Mosque, where he wasn't the imam, but I attended, growing up, I grew up in the mosque in Hartford, Connecticut, where he was the imam. And he led a fundraiser for the refugees of Bosnia at the time. And it was the very first time I had ever seen white Muslims, devout white Muslims, and listening to their stories as a child of what the United States did in the Bosnian War really shaped my perspective about this idea of, you know, karmically, how is this nation, because we always talk about individual karma, but we seldom talk about collective karma or national karma. And reflecting on Bosnia, reflecting on the refugees of Bosnia, I had to reflect on, you know, who we have in the White House right now. Is the President of the United States going to help us chip away at our karmic debt? Is he leading this nation with the nation's greater good at the forefront? Or is he more of a dictator? You know, these are just questions to ask. I likely will do a part 2 of this conversation about weapons of mass destruction, and how if you have a very cultivated mind, that can be very much perceived as a weapon, and you could very much be a target. Anyways, y'all, peace.